The question is, what is karma? Does it even exist? And if it does, how does it determine our destiny? Hi, this is Denise Mathew, and I'm finally answering a question that I've been asked a multitude of times. It's a topic that deserves some attention because it's said to play an important role in the trajectory of our lives, especially when it comes to human design. Today I'm going to talk about karma and destiny in human design. I'm going to admit that even before I was asked about it, I was always interested in karma and actually what it means. So discovering that karma is a big component of some human design profiles, it really piqued my interest. And with enough questions that I couldn't answer, I decided to find out more about what it all meant. And for me to explain what it is, I have to go back to what it's always been considered before human design came in on the picture. Karma isn't really a new concept. I think most of us have heard comments like karma's gonna get you, or what you put out comes back threefold, and a lot of other memes that say it all. And it's pretty common in mainstream culture to actually talk about karma. It comes in all kinds of different ways. Some people will say karma's the punishment you get for things that you do wrong. Other people say it's more of related to reincarnation and those types of things. But basically everybody has some level of what it means to them. And it can range from not believing in it at all, or the other side where your every move that you make feel that there's some level of payback that's going to happen. So what exactly is the traditional definition of what karma means? By definition, karma comes from the Eastern philosophy that is closely associated with the idea of rebirth, and it comes in many schools of Indian religions, particularly Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, as well as Taoism. In these schools, the theory is that karma in the present affects one's future in the current life. And even going further, it can affect the nature and quality of future lives, or one's samsara, a karmic cycle, or even loosely called reincarnation. This karma talks of a spiritual principle of cause and effect, where intent and actions of an individual, and that would be the cause, influence the future of that individual, and that would be the effect. Good intent and good deeds contribute to good karma and happier rebirth, while bad intent and bad deeds contribute to bad karma and bad rebirths. Basically, do good and you get good, and if you do not so good stuff, then you kind of get the picture. Now, if we think about this in the real world, we can all say we've sort of witnessed these moments in our lives or even the lives of others, and it seems as if karma is in play in some way. Sometimes the so-called bully gets their just desserts, and other times a really good person gets a hugely lucky break. So when we see events happen, we start to look at what it means. Is it karma? Is it synchronicity? Or is it something that just happened? And if I'm being honest, no one really knows for sure if karma exists, since not all perceived good deeds always seem to get rewarded, and the same goes for perceived bad deeds. We know that we see people who always break the rules and continue to be allowed to break the rules, and nothing seems to ever come back on them. And while the karma that I'm going to talk about today is no less mystical, it is completely different from the Eastern philosophy of what karma means. So let's get into it. In human design, anyone with a left angle profile, meaning anybody with a profile 5'1", 5'2", 6'2", or 6'3", is said to have what is called transpersonal karma. When we talk about transpersonal karma, we're talking about going beyond the self or going beyond the individual perspective kind of karma. And this kind of transpersonal karma, it's all about the intersections, or when people cross our paths, and the destiny of how it can change people's lives or instead have no effect at all. So the bottom line based on this type of karma is that left angle profile people have transpersonal karma, and they may have what's considered a more fixed or fated path in life, while people with right angle profiles have more of a personal journey in their lives. So let's expand on those two concepts. To explain this and how the karma works for each profile type, we need to first introduce the concept of fractals. In the most basic of terms, according to human design, it all began with two design crystals. One was all about matter, and the other was all about the potential for that matter. And when those two crystals met and impacted each other, they shattered and seeded the whole universe with the potential to receive awareness and to filter the consciousness field. It does sound confusing, so let me try and distill it down a little bit more. Many people have heard about the crystals in human design, the design crystal and also the personality crystals. So what we're talking about is these original crystals that I just talked about became trillions of shards of crystals. And it's said that each person that incarnates is given two of these crystals of consciousness. As I said, a design crystal and a personality crystal. So if we go back to the original crystals, we can talk about fractal lines, which in the most basic of terms is where the parts of the original crystals were close to each other in a theoretical center point. So in other words, how they were lined up together in a way that they were closest to each other. So let's explain a little bit more about that. So if we talk about the center point or the theoretical center point, we would have all the crystals that are lining that theoretical center point would be considered the first fractal. And then behind that, there are more crystals that are not connected to the center, and they would be considered the second fractal. Then you would have the next line of crystals, which would be the third fractal, and so on. So you can imagine that you're in a coliseum and you're in the front row seat, and the front row seats would be considered the first fractal. Then the next row behind you, behind the front row seats, would be considered the second fractal, and so on, going outwards. And you continually would move further away from the theoretical center point. And I did talk about the fractals for a reason, because the importance of the fractals is that it's all about recognition when you incarnate. So if you were sitting in the front row with some people, or you were in the first fractal, then they are in your fractal, and they would be people who you would recognize because they were there with you. Ultimately, what it means, according to human design, is that the fractals that are closest to you are the people that are most familiar to you, and also the people who you have a potential to impact, or they have a potential to impact you. And just to add a little bit more fuel to this fire that I'm building, let's introduce one more word, and that's what Ra Uru calls intersection, or the intersection of geometries. Or when we meet people who are part of our fractal in our incarnation or in the real world. Everyone has intersections or this crossing of paths with this people from your fractal, but that's where things begin to differ between the right angle profiles and the left angle profiles. So when we talk about somebody with a right angle profile and them meeting their fractal, we're talking about somebody who's all about research and development. And the left angle profile is all about transforming the information and universalizing it into mutative knowledge and verifying it to the collective. So we have the right angle profile who are getting the information, developing some things. Then we have the left angle profiles that come in and start to universalize this information or make it more digestible for other people. And it's usually mutative things or new and innovative things. And then we have this idea of it being verified as something of value in the collective. So we can see that the right angle profiles have a different job than the left angle profile. Nobody's is better than the other. They're just different. And if we circle back to the fractals, we know that everybody interacts with fractals, and that's part of our life, but it's different for people who have a right angle profile and those who have a left angle profile. And the distilled version of the whole process is this. Karma of human design is simply a way of bringing the fractal interactions together, the crossing of the fractal lines. So when you move through your life, you will be connected with the forces that are meant for you. For a right angle profile, it's all about your own personal destiny. And though you may have these intersections, they're probably going to be fewer. And when you do have these intersections, they may or may not shift anything in your life because it's all about how you perceive it and it becomes more of an experiential event that may or may not have value to you. It really is a personal interpretation of exactly what you feel it is or what value it brings to you. When we talk about the left angle profiles, the concept is that all of the intersections that somebody with a left angle profile have some level of potential value. The key word here is potential. What it doesn't mean is that every person that crosses your path will change your destiny. What it does say is that every person that crosses your path inherently has within them the potential to change your destiny. So the main difference between the two profile types is that the left angle profile, their destiny is directly tied to certain interactions or these intersections. So connections with people, or what we call transpersonal karma, is extremely important to somebody with a left angle profile. And we can also assume that the right angle profile's destiny is somewhat more flexible, and it's not as dependent on other people, but instead based on the decisions that they in fact make for themselves based on the experience that they're getting from the world around them. So we could say, loosely, that the left angle profiles lean more towards a fated destiny, where their life path is potentially laid out already for them. And right angle profiles have a more fluid destiny, where their own personal choices have more impact on the trajectory of their life. And I've been talking a long time, but I want to make sure that I'm not leaving out the 4-1 juxtaposition profile, because it's not a right angle profile or a left angle profile. It's considered its own entity, and based on human design, it's more about a fixed destiny and fate. And if we can say that anybody with a right angle profile is basically making their own choices and their trajectory in life, when we come to the left angle profile, where we have more of a fixed destiny, there are a few things that will help their destiny be realized so that they're not bumping around based on this transpersonal karma. And it can potentially make it a little bit easier and a more stable path for somebody with a left angle profile to traverse. Knowing about this transpersonal karma can almost get somebody with a left angle profile in a loop where they're wondering about every interaction that they have, if it's meaningful, if it's going to change their life. So let's discuss that a little bit. While we all should follow our strategy based on our type, all profiles should do that. For somebody with a left angle profile, it's really important to use your strategy for your type, because it will make you consistently bump into the right people, or the people that are going to have the deepest impact on your trajectory. Because when you're actually walking along the path of your strategy, you're following your strategy, you are said to be in the flow of your destiny or the flow of your life, and the right people will be attracted to you based on the magnetic monopole and all the theories of human design. And expanding on the concept of the magnetic monopole, which I will do a video on in the future, but for now, the thing to keep in mind is that when you use your mind to make your decisions, it wants to control your decisions. Yet the magnetic monopole is the driver, or it's the attractor for all the experiences you need in your life. It's also called a one-pole magnetic that draws all the opportunities and things that we need for our destiny our way. But it's only going to draw the things that we need for our destiny if we're in the flow of our lives. Another tip for somebody with a left angle profile is that trying to evaluate every person you meet to see if they may or may not have an impact on your life it's really an exercise in futility. Basically, what Ra Uru Hu said is that things will unfold as they're meant to unfold. But if our mind steps in and takes control of the situation, we may not find out what it all means. But if we allow our mind to step back and allow the universe to show us the plan, then things get a lot easier. And Ra Uru Hu himself was a 5-1 profile, so he was somebody who had transpersonal karma as well. An example about how his karma worked and how it does for the left angle profile is that his story was all about his whole life trajectory being changed by an interaction with someone he didn't even know the name of. This person told him about a bus going to Ibiza, Spain, and the rest is history, because that's where he had his download for the whole human design system. So that just shows you that how these trajectories of your life can be completely changed based on one interaction like it was with him. Of course, not everybody's going to have that kind of an impact or that kind of a life trajectory as he did, but it just shows you exactly what it looks like in real terms. And that's all I have for you today. I hope it was informative, and feel free to ask as many questions as you like, and I'll answer them the best I can. And for now, that's all I have to say, and I'll be back soon with lots more content. Take care, and I'll see you again soon.